My name is Dick Fleming, and during the Vietnam War I was a member of 1st Force Recon and Recon Battalion. And I tell my stories about my experiences in the war in a book I wrote called Chasing Charlie, which is available on Amazon. I also have a website called firstforcerecon.com where I again tell about resources that might be available if you're interested in this era, and also some photographs that I took during my time in country or that other people have sent me. So that's firstforcerecon.com. On this channel, I also set up a playlist, and if you like my stories, what I would recommend is that you go to that playlist and you can view the videos in order, where the sequential order from when I first arrived in Vietnam to when my final tour of duty was over and I flew out, and even my comments about the war and what happened to me afterward. So that playlist is available, and I think it might be a good way to view the videos. So I was coming back from Freedom Hill one day, and Freedom Hill was our kind of a center, not an R&R center exactly, but a place where we got paid, and they had a laundry there. And I was picking up my pressed utilities, the starched utilities, so that I used to reserve just for formations. And I probably, I probably had eaten well, because they had a good chow hall down there where you could buy pizza and chickens, fried chicken, stuff that you couldn't get in our normal mess hall. I also picked up this, which I've been carrying around since that time, a little plaque that the Vietnamese vendors made, and you could buy little souvenirs like this at Freedom Hill. I don't know how they chose the vendors that were allowed to sell stuff there, but they had places where you could buy artwork or little knickknacks like this. You could get your hair cut there at Freedom Hill. So I was coming back, just looking at this again. It has the names of all the teams that I had: Mayfly, Spillway, and Forefather. We used Forefather quite a bit. That was our call sign. When we used to be called in, we'd get a situation report, and they'd say Forefather, sit-rep, and then we'd click our communications handset. So I was walking back to the compound. I had taken the truck over. It was about a mile, I guess, from Freedom Hill over to Camp Reasoner. And as I was walking up to my hooch, I saw Frenchie sitting there on the steps. He was one of the new replacements that had come in about the same time as Marr and Bowman, Moose, Thurman, replacing guys who were due to rotate out or had been medevaced out. So he was waiting there for me, and he looked like he was, as I went up to him, he said, Dick, did you hear about Recon Battalion? And I said, no. I said, what about Recon Battalion? He goes, well, 1st Platoon got into a firefight, and one of the men was shot. And I said, which platoon? He goes, 1st Platoon. Well, that was my platoon. And I said, who was shot? and he said it was their point man. Well, the point man was my friend, Chief. And I said, Chief, is he okay? And he said, no. He said he was shot, and the round hit one of his grenades on him, and he was killed instantly. And 2 other guys were wounded. I said, oh man. Frenchy goes, yeah, I knew he was your friend. I saw you talking to him a couple of weeks ago. I go, yeah. I said, yeah, he was my friend. He was my good friend. And, well, I asked him what happened, and he told me that the team had just gotten in, just been inserted into a hot LZ, and they received incoming fire just as soon as they got off the C-46, and they immediately started receiving fire. Maybe the North Vietnamese had set up an ambush there and were just waiting for the guys to come off of the chopper, or they saw the incoming chopper, and it was an opportunity for them to open up on these guys before they disappeared into the bush. And must have been a hell of a firefight. The chopper remained on the ground until the other men had gotten in the chopper, and they dragged in they had dragged in what was left of my friend. So anyway, they got, the rest of the team got out. I later found out that the other 2 men that were hit had not been in the team when I was there, so I didn't know them. But they were medevaced out right to the hospital. So I didn't know what to think at the time. My immediate reaction was guilt. I thought, my God, if I'd have been there, maybe I could have done something. Well, that was just foolish. I couldn't have done anything. I probably would have gotten killed myself. But that was my original thought. And then, God help me, my second thought was, Jesus, I'm glad it wasn't me. The other thing that happened was I felt myself over the next few days becoming kind of hard inside. A hardness. You couldn't dwell on those things. There was no way you could express your grief. That wasn't the Marine Corps way in the first place. And there was no way to do that. We heard about men who got hit, who got killed, who'd been terribly wounded. I think my reaction was kind of typical. You just couldn't do it, because if you did, you'd never survive. You'd never survive. Your body and soul would be destroyed by the carnage that was happening around you. You had to develop that hardness. And in some cases, it probably went to extremes. In the case of Sergeant Blaze, the sergeant of the 1st Platoon, Recon Btn, where the war had taken over his soul, and he had become a hard shell. Well, they had a service for Chief at the excuse me. we had a small chapel at Camp Reasoner. It was just a small hut, really. And I had never gone there before because I wasn't a religious guy. I'm still not that hot on organized religion, although I certainly, you know, I certainly am open to the idea. Well, the chaplain came in, and I decided to go to that service in respect for Chief. And the chaplain came in, and we were all sitting there, the members of the team, and maybe 10 or 15 other guys. But they had a linoleum floor, and there was a cross emblazoned in red on the floor. But table sitting at the front, and the chaplain came in. He was late. He had this portable altar that he'd carry around with him, and he set that up on the table. It had a white sheet on it that he draped over the framework. And a few of the officers were there as well. And the major made a short speech, and once the ceremony had started, and the captain had said something, and I thought that we'd be asked as well. You know, the men who knew him the best, you know, would be asked to say something. You know, I would have welcomed the chance to tell everyone how much Chief had meant to me, what a wonderful mentor he had been to me, and what a great guy he was. I mean, these other officers, they didn't know Chief. I don't think. You know, they didn't know him in a personal way. But we all sat there like bumps on a log, you know, and nobody asked us to say anything. And you know, the ceremony completed, and the chaplain packed up his accoutrements in a bag, and that was it. Now, I never heard of Chief being a religious person. We never talked about that. We talked about everything else. Talked about lots of things. I never knew him particularly religious. What he did tell me one time is that, you know, when he returned to the States, that his tribe was the elders of the tribe would hold a ceremony for him, and the ceremony would absolve him from the trauma of combat, and would mitigate the effects of war and integrate him into the society once again. And he only had about 3 months left in country. He was kind of getting short, and I think he was looking forward to that ceremony. It's something that I would have wished that when I returned that somebody had done something like that for me, because carrying around all that guilt and never. You know, from the things you did and the things you didn't do, and the effects of war in general on your soul. Well, it's a hard thing to overcome. You know, a lot of the guys in that first platoon, there were quite a number of Mexican Americans, and they were Catholics. Of course, I know, you know, the Catholics have confession, which absolves someone of guilt, and that I think is necessary. I don't know whether any psychological counselor, you know, who's had never been in combat before, and trying to use some kind of newfangled theory on your soul could do what a priest or a shaman or whomever, you know, who, you know, was able to accomplish. Well, thinking about it later, I thought to myself, Jesus, I knew Chief's name. He said he was Chief. I called him Chief. And one time I said to him, doesn't it bother you, to your nickname of Chief? And he goes, nah. He goes, I don't sweat the small stuff. I don't sweat the small stuff. That's what he said to me. But I never knew his real name. I never knew his last name. I didn't know his first name. I just knew him as Chief. And he knew me as Rick. Like Frenchie, Moose. All these guys, we used these nicknames. And, Slim, when Slim called me from out of the blue a few years ago, emailed me, and he gave me his real name. I didn't know who the hell he was until I realized he was Slim. The guy we call Slim. But she said, don't sweat the small stuff. He had his mind in the right place, and there's no question about it. And I owe him a debt of gratitude. And of course now there's no way I can even begin to repay it. Well, that was Vietnam, 1968. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.